All right. So, a quick, I don't know, developer talk, GM talk, game talk in general. Some of this conversation I've had with Dell over the last week or so in private conversations, as well as some private texting. Maybe something we could have podcast about, but I decided to take another angle here. So you want to develop a role playing game. Let's take the stance that you want to design, develop your own. And whether this is what every GM does, hot rods or home brews their own version of the thing everybody in the neighborhood or everybody in the group is agreed to play, which is ultimately what we all did. Guys that were GMing their buddies in the basement as kids or adults, whatever the case may be, they would come together based on what had been purchased, or come together based on what everybody owned, or come together based on what everybody wanted to play. Um, and then, of course, the culture of play would dictate rule changes. They would become developers in a way, right? Everybody at the table would say, I really hate starting with one hit point." And everybody discusses what they want to achieve, and they make tweaks to the game. And sometimes the GM decides the fate of those things, or sometimes the group decides those fate. We as friends ultimately would, in a way, it was democratic. We would all agree on how we wanted to tweak D&D, so to speak, right? Or I would use rules that they all just enjoyed using, right? Whatever rules I was using, they were okay with. So, but it was basic Moldvay 1981 was our first dive into role play. Literally, I don't believe we really played Holmes. I don't think we really did much with Holmes prior to 81's the discovery of the Moth box, so to speak. So, and so I guess part of this discussion is preferences, right? So I'll lay down the law of what I like. I like simple. I like when I play. So I like simple games, period, whether I'm a GM or a player. That's one, and I'll define what that means. When I'm a player, I like to be in character and I like to get immersed and I like to be in first person, right? Okay. And third, uh, I prefer role play. I prefer mechanics and system do not legislate role play. Okay. I prefer we're left to our own devices as to what role play is. I want to be a character. I want to play the game from the character's perspective. I want to be in the fiction from that character's perspective. I want to be in the genre of the game, the setting, the situation from an IC in character's perspective. And I don't need that legislated by rules. I want mechanics for everything that is not character, everything that is not about representing my personality or my character, right? That would be to resolve piloting, horseback riding, combat, jumping a pit, negotiating with the barbarian chieftain, finding secrets, exposing lies, all the things I cannot effectively role play. And that's the gist of what we're talking about. So in role playing games, I am role playing only ever the character as the character, right? Therefore, I only need game systems and mechanics to support everything that I am not role playing. Now, how much I need to resolve a fight or skill? Do I need skills to resolve it? Because we're talking about a different period in history, as Dell likes to say. When we're talking about space games, there might be more specific careers in which you're going to need more specific skills, right? I'm a pilot of the aircraft. You're a brain surgeon, etc. We're going to need some skills for those things, right? Or we could have broad professions that encompass skills that are acceptable. I'm a pilot. There's going to be some skills that fall under pilot naturally, right? Navigation, actual piloting, procedural for landing in an airport, right? Pilots have multiple jobs, right? They check out the aircraft, they provide organization for the crew and the rules of the crew. They also know, pre-flight, flight, and of course landing, takeoff, post-flight, navigation. There's a shit ton of things that fall under what a pilot has to do. But we could encompass that as just pilot, or we could say under pilot are all these other subsidiary skills. And that's where the games start to get complicated. The games start to become, in my opinion, mechanic heavy. And I say, Why when I can just say pilot, right? And everything that includes gunman and everything, a rifleman, everything that includes hand-to-hand martial artist and everything that might include, right? Whatever the case may be, investigator and everything that might fall under what an investigator's skills would be. So role-playing games, this is why old D&D worked for me as a kid. That's why it works for me as an adult. That's why it's worked for me for 35, 40 years, because it doesn't legislate role-playing. It provides a game and it provides the rules for everything you can't role play, everything your character is not, right? We're going to roll for fighting. We're going to roll for initiative. We're going to roll for combat. We're going to roll for actual melee. We're going to roll for saving throws. We're going to roll to pick locks, hide and shadows, etc. But then everything else is not legislated. And certainly the only thing that I would argue governs role play in old D&D, and I mean this literally governs role play, is alignment. Outside of that, and most people don't like alignment because it requires they role play. It would require that they have to do something they might not want to do. I am good. I'm lawful, and I'm dealing. One of my party mates is chaotic, and I'm going to step out and help my party mate by healing them. That's a role play decision, and I would say no. Your alignment isn't such. I wouldn't probably heal your character unless you agreed to terms. That becomes a contract, right? Well, you can't because they're supposed to role play a chaotic character. So they couldn't agree to terms of a social contract for me to heal your character if they were role playing and they were following the rules. So the only thing that legislates role playing, in my opinion, actual role playing in old D&D is alignment. There are guys like myself that use attribute scores to kind of inform me as to what my character might be strong at, which might flavor his personality. He's stupid. Or, I have a low intelligence, low wisdom, but I got 18 strength. I'm gonna probably play my character up as the big brute, right? The guy who's not necessarily, and I wouldn't help, by the way. Even if I knew the answer to a puzzle question in the game live, I would refrain from giving the answer because my character has a 4 intelligence. That's how I would role play my character, even if I knew the answer to some riddle that we're given by the GM at the table. I would not give the answer if I'm role playing my character based on his attributes, right? And my attributes happen to be 4 intelligence and 3 wisdom, right? That doesn't mean you couldn't be a savant and know the answer. This is where you could argue, why couldn't I give the answer? Feel free. But role playing to me is everything that is character and personality, viewpoint, where I'm coming from, what I'm about, why I might make motives, why I might choose to pick the lock, but then choose not to pickpocket. Those are character choices that I'm going to make, and they're not legislated by the rules. Just because I'm a thief and I have pickpocket doesn't mean I may ever want to use pickpocket, but I have the ability to lockpick, and I may use it all the time, right? That becomes a character decision. I'm not legislated to use pickpocket by the rules, right? Certainly as a character. It's a device to resolve a pickpocket check. So this is where I come from with why I love D20 and the old SAR, why I like simple games that legislate what we cannot through role play value, right? We cannot through role play dictate. We can't dictate whether I actually shoot them successfully with my gun or stab them with my sword or climb the sheer wall to get into the fort or navigate the forest when I'm lost. So we need dice or a mechanism to resolve what I cannot in character claim. And that to me is the big difference, right? So do I need games with mechanics that legislate character? For me, no. I don't want to legislate role playing through mechanics. Instantly, game more complicated. Instantly, there's gatekeeping to who I want to be. Can I be informed by a lot of character information? Yes. Do games do a great job of saying yes? Then there's games that try to legislate that. Well, you are playing this thing and you have this motivation. And they don't punish you for not playing it, but they reward you for playing it. That is a role playing mechanism that I personally don't really need or want. I rarely run games, and I certainly don't play in many of those games, but I don't run any games that have these requirements, right? Something like Barbarians of Lemuria has hero points. Those hero points are there for you to be the protagonist that you claim you are and to affect the flow of the game through failed dice results, trying to create another environment, right? A twist of fate, calling on the gods, whatever the case may be, sundering swords and shields, whatever the case may be. But hero points are rewarded for playing into genre, not playing your character, playing into genre. So when I play into that genre of high adventure, barbarians, and Conan-esque, and I play into genre, then I get a hero point. Or when something, I do something particularly effective, but not necessarily for claiming I'm greedy and then playing a greedy person. So there's a mechanism that can be used to promote the idea that we are protagonists, we are competent, we are heroes, which plays the genre. And then in session, if I'm in character and I play the genre, I'm going to get rewarded a hero point. And then I'm going to be able to use the hero point to further the genre. The cycle of the hero point, I get it for pushing genre and I use it to push genre. I get it for pushing genre. I use it to push genre. It's a perfect device, right? How I'm role playing into genre, there's a mechanism that supports the genre, the character in genre, not just character. I prefer games that don't legislate any style of character. I mean, this is why I like it, random character attributes. I'm not informed by any of that unless I choose to be. I choose an alignment. If we're playing seriously by alignment, that should make a difference. Hopefully, the players in a party doesn't mean we wouldn't work together to achieve a common goal. We're going to bring those goblins out of there. I'm lawful about it. We may have some arguments along the way that I don't think you should kill the goblin chief, and you're saying screw the goblin chief, and we might have arguments that are alignment based. But also, if I'm a cleric, I might choose not to heal the chaotic guy because he should be role playing a particular attitude. And if he role plays that attitude of killing the goblin chief against, say, my religious orders of, hey, we could take this guy in, or hey, we could just run this guy off, then that becomes role play stuff. That becomes group. You know, we would always discourage. We were always neutral. I think we always made our characters neutral back in the day, and we always generally chose to be neutral characters because it made sense. You don't know who you're gonna be running with, and you don't know what you're gonna encounter, and what you're gonna have to make a decision based on situation, context, as opposed to just being dogmatic about being lawful or dogmatic about being chaotic. And I have rarely played with anyone who's been actually successful at playing chaotic characters if they're not in a party of chaotic characters, right? I've had players act out, right, out of frustration or boredom, or they act out, but they weren't necessarily using alignment. We weren't necessarily chaotic characters. I would expect some players to act out when you're playing a chaotic character to do something that is somewhat out of kilter, like suddenly stabbing an NPC with a dagger, whatever. That to me is a chaotic action. So it's almost a random, whoa, dude, you didn't have to do that kind of action. Okay. So if we're going to have those issues that legislate role playing, then there needs to be devices on which you would have to adhere. And then we get more complicated. So the more we add, the more complicated the rules and the mechanics get, the more dice rolls or the more no's you have to put out there, or the more rewards you have to give to entice people to stick within the mechanic system. And for me, for role play, for me to be icy in character, immersed, playing from my character's perspective as my character, that's role play. And I don't need anything to legislate, right? And therefore, I only need simple mechanisms to resolve actions that we are not allowed to dictate. Combat results, climbing results, piloting results, whatever results that we are not in control of as characters. When you role play, you should be role playing just your character, just your character's perspective, just your character's take, nothing else. Everything else that requires a result, it's based on a challenge, or we have to resolve a situation, or we don't know, right? That's why as a GM, very often I say, dude, let's make a roll here. Let's roll a 1d6 to see if indeed you do recognize this language, because I don't want to use GM fiat and say, no, you don't, or yes, you do know, right? Unless you can make a good argument that your character does, right? And Barbarians of Lemuria provides us with a mechanism that says you can make a good argument. It asks you to make an argument. Make an argument your hunter might know based on hunter, or based on gladiator, or based on a career, right? Based on a career. You might be able to pull that into play to decipher a language because your character is had a career as a traveling administrator and might have seen this ancient language and know a little bit about it. You call that up as a mechanic of knowledge, and that, but it's still a mechanic to aid in the actual device to determine whether it's true or not. We're going to roll dice. Go ahead and add +2 for your 2 years as an administrator, right? Among the Valid Guardians, right? I prefer games that don't legislate role playing. They don't demand we do a thing, right? I don't like social mechanical devices in games. Like when I think win an argument, we have a social mechanic that will decide an argument. I really don't like those kind of mechanics. I can see why certain games use them because it creates a different environment at the table in which you're having a different game experience, right? But I wanted to talk about role playing. What is role playing? Role playing is character, and it's all you get to do in role playing is be your character. Motivated actions, decisions, dialogue, all of that is where we get to be role played. We get to do character role play. Everything else is mechanism. Everything else generally requires resolution, and that uses some kind of mechanic. So if you want to develop a role playing game, ask yourself how much of it do you want to be role playing? How much of it do you want to be something else? And if you believe you need to legislate role playing, then it changes the style of game you're going to run, right? It changes the style of game you're going to create. It changes the style of game that you are going to create because you are asking the players to adhere to a particular group of mechanics that may inform role playing, may inform character, may inform then ultimately other results. And I don't think we need them. I don't think we ever have. As I told Dell, I can role play Monopoly. Most people do this in Monopoly. They have a get out of jail free. They end up in jail, and they just go, I'm going to get out of jail free, and they throw their card down. They just say it. Here's the mechanic. I'm going to get out of jail free. Everybody, here it is. Throw it down, and I'm out of jail. I roll it. But what does that look like role playing? When you don't mention the device, you don't mention the mechanic. You say, yeah, I'm calling my lawyer. Hey, Bill, yeah, listen, yeah, I got in trouble again. Yeah, I need you to come bail me out. Okay, all right, yeah, all right, bye. Boom. And I throw the card down on the table and everybody sees, oh, he's using his get out of jail free card. And I never alluded to getting out of jail free. And I role played out the event and threw it down. And I don't actually mention the mechanic, right? So if we can do that in Monopoly, I think we can do that in any game, right? We don't have to role play mechanics out. We can role play. And hopefully, if we all share a certain vocabulary and a certain understanding of the game, we've mastered we are fluent in Call of Cthulhu, then hopefully, as they present their character, they would activate mechanics. They would call up on roles by how they present their character, which is why I say I really love games where the game terms fit the genre. The game terms fit what I might say as a character, right? So my character in Barbarians of Lemuria will call himself a hunter, and because it uses hunter as a game term, uh, which is, by the way, a career term, which is, by the way, a mechanism, and I'm going to get a bonus based on the length of that career. But it doesn't use a term that my character would say. Yes, in my years as a hunter, I have seen this before. Cueing David that I'm about to add my +2 hunter to this, so we don't have to discuss. David, I think my hunter here would be a bonus, which you can do. There's nothing wrong with that. But I like games where the game terms actually fit what I would say as a character, right? And then that's easy to just say the game term in character as character, and it also cues everybody at the table what I'm doing. And I think games that don't work outside of that by creating complicated, complex game mechanisms, the easier that is to do. Traveler, I think, very intuitive mechanisms for what I'm doing and how I'm doing it. And simple games, of course, with just attributes trigger very easily, right? I think games that are based on skill should be a pretty easy activation. I'm piloting the aircraft. If I'm the pilot in the pilot seat, it shouldn't require a lot of conversation as to what skill am I using when I say what I'm doing, the GM says, yes, you're going to have to make you feel the plane shudder and begin to yaw, 15 degrees to starboard. I would like to think that would cue me to make a piloting check. You feel the plane pull and yaw 15 degrees. and that should cue me that we're in a piloting check here. Oh, I'm wrestling. I'm pulling hard pulling hard port, and I roll the dice. Oh, it's and I describe how I'm yelling for somebody to come help me pull, right? Cueing the GM that I failed to roll, or yeah, I twist that sucker with all my might back into center, and that cues the GM that I have rectified that particular malfunction with a plane. Do you role play or do you talk about the game? Do you role play or do you talk about mechanics? Do you say, yeah, I'm gonna, again, are you an avatar playing a game, a board game, in which you're calling on and just referring to mechanics, or are you role playing a character trying to stay within the similar system? That isn't acting. That's not LARPing, right? It's not acting. That is role playing. You don't have to have a particular voice. You don't have to pretend to be a thing, but you stay in the framework of the atmosphere, the setting, everybody sharing at the table, so to speak, right? Um, so that is what role play gaming is to me. Role play is a particular thing. It is you role play only your character. Everything else may require results, right? The things you can't role play in character, and even you can role play, of course, the results of taking action. The results are the prompt to take action, and of course, you can role play the results of said action, obviously, right? But what I mean by that is you only concern yourself with your character in the role playing, nothing else. Everything else will probably require mechanics. And so games that don't legislate or attempt to legislate role playing are ultimately what I grew up with and are ultimately what I like to be and where I like to be. And I like simple games because if we're going to not legislate certain things, it makes other things simple. Like what is a gunfight? What is a car chase? What is a climbing feat? What is a right? And those things can be as simple, non-tactical choices, or they can be very sophisticated tactical war game elements, like Pathfinder becomes very tactical combat, right? There's nothing wrong with that. And you find yourself role playing maybe through the combat, but most likely we are going to adjudicate and facilitate the combat with some quips as characters in role play. Description of character to flavor the combat. But really, the only time we role play our character in Pathfinder is when it is just about character, so to speak. Right. So anyway, I thought I would share this. Um, it's not complicated for me. It never has been. I prefer simple games. I prefer games that don't try to legislate lots of things because I want freedom and I want the players to be free to think and act as the players in these situations, these characters in these situations. And what happens when the character in the situation doesn't have a piloting skill? And you telling me I don't want to feel like I can't grab the yoke of an aircraft because I don't have the piloting skill, of course. And they know that. That's why they have a rule for what's the worst unskilled percentage you can have, right? To pilot an aircraft with no ability. But the more we think of in lines of specification, right? The your specialist, your specification, that you may then be less inclined to even grab the yoke of the airplane when the pilot has been shot in the head, right, or something. So the less we legislate what you can and cannot do, even in game, the more players are free to be characters, and they'll do what instinctually that character would do. Right? I pull the captain out of the seat. I throw his unfortunate lifeless dead body to the ground. I hop in and I grab the yoke and I just start pulling the plane, trying to bring it out of a nosedive. Right? And mechanically, then simple call. Right? That's a piloting check. Right? And if you don't have the skill, it's going to be a 10% chance or whatever unskilled is. Right? Or however that system works. So I don't know. It's very interesting, but so I thought about this. You want to play a role playing game? How much do you want to role play? How much do you want to combat? How much do you want the actual mechanics to affect anything other than what needs to be resolved as action? And for me, I mostly need mechanics to resolve unknown and to resolve action. I don't need mechanics for any other thing. And that's kind of what Dark Age of Man is. There's if you consider character creation a mechanic, and I do, creating your character uh, is a mechanic that allows you to create what you want to play. And then we'll have certain rules that arbitrate, the world around your character or arbitrate your interaction as a peasant or a lord with the world, etc. And then what you say is a simple call on what mechanic or what attribute we may need to resolve the thing you've just said you've done or that you would like to achieve, right? And that to me is all I need for immersive, in character, first person play. And if our terms match the genre, then players can readily say the thing and it doesn't draw anyone out of immersion. And we also know we're referring to the thing, mind, body, right? As opposed to IQ or prowess, spirit, as opposed to I what's another? So I can see a character in the Dark Ages saying, well, I don't have the spirit for it. My spirit is not in it, right? Mind check makes sense as opposed to IQ, which didn't exist in the Dark Ages, like the term IQ or right body, physical, whatever. Even those things you could hear a person say. Because as I said the other night in one of our conversations post session, people don't talk that way. So if you want me to be in character, we have to recognize that if I want to be in character and stay in character and actually communicate with everybody at the table from a character's point of view, I'm going to say things like a human being would say them. And if I'm required to use mechanical talk or I'm required to figure out how can I phrase this so it activates mechanics, then I'm working too hard to be immersed, right, in character play. And I've talked about immersion, the autotelic personality, and the flow state of immersion. Flow state, for you to get immersed in anything, which is concentration, your your actual ability to do the thing must be equal to the challenge of the thing. If the thing I'm trying to do is too hard, I will never get immersed. I will never be in flow state because I will be frustrated and I can't concentrate on the action. If my skill matches the challenge, I can reach immersed flow state much, much easier. Concentrate to achieve. And the level of concentration is not counterintuitive to reaching immersion. If something's too easy, it is, which is where I think there are individuals who say, I like mechanical games, complicated games, because too easy doesn't immerse me. Too hard, I'm frustrated and can't get immersed. So a game like 2D20 for the first time, it's going to be tough to get immersed because it's my knowledge and my ability with the rules of 2D20 far greater learning curve for me early. Therefore, I'm not going to be immersed in a 2D20 game that I've never played. It's going to take session after session until I'm able to master the mechanics to be immersed. And there'll be others who say a simple dice six dice roll to adjudicate combat is just not enough for me to stay in the stress of combat. Right. So you can see how too simple isn't a challenge because there's nothing keeping you in the frame of what I'm doing to survive combat or what I'm doing to right. How I describe it as a GM might influence your take on how tense this combat is. But if the mechanism is just too easy, like rock, paper, scissors, there's not a lot of tension there, right? So Barbarians of Lemuria the other night, great example of enough requirement of us to wage combat, but not so restrictive that I cannot throw the spear and sprint at the same time. I can't see myself as a character doing certain actions, right? But the combat a little more going on there. So I'm still thinking about tactics and how I survive this, how I achieve success, right? And therefore I'm more immersed with a little bit of mechanics as opposed to being maybe just a simple coin mechanic, right? Heads, I win the fight. Tails, I lose the fight. I'm not going to be immersed in that either, right? Because I'm really not doing anything. I'm just narrating, my combat, and then we flip the coin to see if I kill the guy. Right? So sometimes we lose immersion in a too simple attack. So again, however, if I'm playing with a child who's never done this before, a coin flip will be satisfactory challenge for their level of skill, right? And that's so I like simple, not because my level of skill stinks, but because when I'm immersed in character, I'm willing to accept the resolution of action as being simple pass fail in whatever thing we use, right? Generally, because that's not going to influence how I respond to the failure or how I respond to the success, right? As in character. But anyway, thanks for watching, everybody. I just wanted to chat about this. As Dale and I had some ongoing conversations about, what does it take and why would people choose mechanical games or why would people like us prefer simple games? And for me, first and foremost, I don't want to legislate role playing. My role playing is all about character, and every decision I make is from a character's perspective. Everything that occurs to me occurs to my character. And the only thing I'm really concerned about the mechanics affecting is what is not character. Actions I take and why I take them, that's character. But I have no control over the outcome of those actions. Do I shoot the bad guy? Do I successfully navigate the car? Do I climb the sheer walls of the fort? Do I hide in shadows? Do I pick the lock? Those aren't character. Those are not character things. My motivations to take those actions are role playing things. Those are character things. But the outcome of those things are decided by the dice. Right? So anyway, all right, everybody have a great day.